come on down. You're a Philadelphia Eagle. That's what the game show host said. The Eagles signed the speedster wide receiver today to a one-year deal worth up to $6.5 million. Brown is a former first-round pick of the Ravens who has played for Arizona and most recently KC. Last season he had 587 yards and 5 touchdowns for Kansas City. He should provide a deep threat for the Eagles' passing game. The Eagles going Hollywood. As we welcome you to Birds Huddle, presented by Toyota, official automotive partner of the NFL. Dave Zangaro, Michael Barkan at your service. Dave, Hollywood's the cousin of former superstar wide receiver Antonio Brown. Give us your thoughts on this move, Dave.
Yeah, for me, it makes sense. And I think the next question is he here to be the wide receiver 3 or the wide receiver 2? That is something they're going to have to figure out what happens with A.J. Brown. But for now, I like the signing of Hollywood Brown. He brings some speed to that offense. That's something they have needed. And you like that speed, especially if he ends up being the wide receiver 3. And it's not just vertical speed. I think it's horizontal speed, too. He's able to stretch the field both ways, open up some space in an offense that should be able to create for other players in there. And just that speed element, I think, is what they've been missing. And that's what he provides. He ran a 4.27 at his pro day back in 2019. I know that's a while back now, but he's still fast, still has the burners. He can help them.
That's all upside. What's the detractors say?
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't lived up to that first-round status. He was a first-round pick, 25th overall in 2019, and he's had one 1,000-yard season. He's obviously slight in frame, 5'9", 180, has dealt with some durability issues throughout his career. So that's the downside, and I think that's baked in to whatever the contract number ultimately is, because that up to $6.5 million might be doing some heavy lifting.
If there is a trade of you-know-who, could Hollywood Brown serve as your number 2 receiver in a pinch? Could he do it?
In a pinch, I still don't think that's ideal because, look, A.J. Brown is one of the best receivers in the NFL. That is not a one-for-one trade-off there. You would ideally like to add more than just Hollywood Brown if you're going into a season without A.J. Brown. Maybe that comes via trade or another free agent or maybe in the draft in April. But I don't think just losing one Brown and bringing in another is enough.
That doesn't do it.
Yeah, just because the names are the same.
Both name Brown.
Yeah, that is not a one-for-one.
You save on jersey, though. You save on the name.
Not bad.
You save on the nameplate. 3-point stance presented by Toyota. Stance 1. The Eagles are filling needs without breaking the bank. Brown's the 4th outside free agent they've signed this offseason. Dave, what do you make of Howie Roseman's offseason so far?
Yeah, it's kind of what he told us he was going to do, right? Not spend big, not make huge splashes. I think the Tariq Woolen one is obviously the most significant of the bunch, $12 million for that 1 year. But all of those are one-year deals, and those are kind of plug-and-play type of guys that don't hurt you down the line. If it's a bad contract, it's just a bad contract for this year, and you can get out of it really easily. And this is kind of the mold that they're in right now, is that they want to draft well. They want to re-sign these guys that they identify as cornerstones to top-of-the-market type deals, and they want to supplement the roster by adding one-year guys as they see fit. And it doesn't mean that a situation won't arise in the coming years where there's a big-name free agent out there, they go after him, they sign him. We saw that a couple years ago. They were in a much different situation. They signed Saquon Barkley, they signed Bryce Huff. Howie Roseman is not opposed to that, but that is not where they are right now.
The one item that surprised me a little bit, believe it or not, was Grant Calcaterra, because everyone criticized his blocking. Mm-hmm. Were you surprised at all that they brought him back?
Look, they like him, and I think that a lot of the criticism for Grant Calcaterra last year should have been on the coaching staff for putting him in some really bad situations. Like, Grant Calcaterra is not an inline blocking tight end. He just isn't. I think he is a useful pass catcher. He has a skill set that they can use. They didn't have the complementary piece last year, and they hope they found that in Johnny Munt, who is a much better blocking tight end. So I think Grant can be useful. You wish that there was a way to combine those skill sets in the one player, theoretically, right? That's what you have in Dallas Goedert, or what you once had in Dallas Goedert. But yeah, the Grant Calcaterra one, I get that he's not a fan favorite, but we saw a couple years ago he can make some catches. He can move the ball downfield. He has some yards after catch ability too.
All right, stance number 2, the price for A.J. Brown should remain high. Today, the Denver Broncos filled their need for a playmaker by trading for Dolphins speedster Jalen Waddle. Miami receives the 30th pick plus third and fourth rounders from Denver in exchange for Waddle and the Dolphins' fourth rounder. Dave, first off, what do you make of the deal? And again, how does that impact a potential A.J. Brown move?
Yeah, two thoughts on that, Michael. Number one, there is now one fewer team that might be interested in the services of an A.J. Brown. So that is bad. The good news here is you see the return for Jalen Waddle and you go, okay, A.J. Brown is a better player. Theoretically, he should bring back more than Jalen Waddle. And it makes you think that Howie Roseman's reported asking price of a first-round pick and a second-round pick is not as crazy as it maybe once seemed to some other teams.
Yeah, and you and I were talking before we went on, and I said there's no way they're trading A.J. Brown before June 1st, and you said what?
If the return is great enough, and I think there needs to be incentive if the Eagles are going to do this and incur that dead cap hit of $43 million this season, they would need to get a substantial return, and the price would probably need to be higher than maybe after that fact. But then again, you're after the draft, you're talking about 2027 return and a draft that's probably better. And if, let's be honest, we're talking about the Patriots, they're going to be drafting in a better position last year than they are this year, 31st overall.
But how antsy could Mike Vrabel and the Patriots get as they see other teams get star receivers or big money receivers with A.J. Brown still out there? Could that kind of up the ante for the Pats?
It could, but the problem is, like, who else is in on A.J. Brown? Can the Eagles drum up some interest elsewhere? Can they pin two teams against each other? That's typically what helps get the return back that you want, is if you have multiple teams bidding and not just one. But you can also play some tricks, and the draft can spur action too. We've seen that before. It's when A.J. Brown got traded, right? So keep an eye when we get close to the draft. Sometimes that'll kick something loose.
Quickly, at this point, something we haven't, I don't think, thought about at this point in the situation, which is, could A.J. Brown stay and have it be no issue right now? Or would that be a problem?
Yeah, it's a fair question. It's something that we saw back in 2021 with Zach Ertz when everyone thought he was going to get traded. I've made this joke before. Maybe A.J. will dye his hair blonde like Zach Ertz did in that training camp. I don't know that for a fact. I think it might be tough. After all of this, it's been a constant headline. It might be tough to put the toothpaste back in the tube at this point.
Might be tough for the quarterback, too. Stance 3. The Eagles could draft a wide receiver in the first round. Even if they stand pat on Brown, the Birds could use some cheaper talent as they try to turn over the offense. Dave, here are top projected wide receivers. Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana is reportedly going to have a pre-draft visit with the Birds. What would you make of him as their first rounder?
Interesting player. Certainly, like, yards after catch is the first thing that comes to mind with him. Has some running back ability in him. He's like, once he gets the ball in his hands, that's where he really makes things happen. So a useful player if you have the right guys in charge to make the most of him. He's a fun player, too. I mean, I had a blast watching him this year. I think where they're drafting at 23 might be a little high for him.
All right, how about Jordan Tyson?
Jordan Tyson, to me, would be a home run. I think he is a wide receiver one eventually in the NFL. Some durability concerns could push him down toward the 20s, maybe mid to late 20s even. If that happens, I think the Eagles have been opportunistic before when the medical of some teams doesn't line up with theirs and they're able to go and draft those players. I think Tyson might be one of those guys. He's a really fun player.
His brother Jalen is an NBA player for the Cleveland Cavaliers, dropped 39 points on the Sixers early this season. Can this guy, can he get 6 points on the regular?
He might need to.
I hope so. Who said it? Free agency edition. Here's what's going to happen. I'll give Dave a quote, and he'll guess who said it. Contestant, are you ready?
I don't have a choice, Michael. I am ready.
Not have a choice. Up first, who said this? Quote, I'm excited about expanding my game and really getting that finishing aspect and turning a lot of the disruption into production. Dave, your guess?
Well, I've heard this one. I know this is Jalen Phillips. I heard him say this. And he better, because they paid him an awful lot of money in Carolina.
And you think he'll do it?
Well, I don't know if look, that is so much money. He's getting paid like top-tier edge rusher money, $30 million a year. He's a good player. I think he's a $20 to $22 million a year player. $30 million is a lot. I understand why the Eagles let him walk. I think he's a really good player. I don't know if he's going to have the sack production to make people feel like he's worth that money.
Yeah, and let's be honest. You sign a guy like that for that kind of money in Philadelphia, you better produce to that level. Yeah. Otherwise,
think about it. I thought he was a really good player for the Eagles last year. He had 2 sacks in 8 games. I think he's useful. I think he's good. And, sack production does matter at the end of the day.
Okay. Next up, in Who Said It?
Okay.
Quote, I felt like I was wanted, and I feel like I never really had that with my whole career. Dave, who said that?
How about Kenny Gainwell? Got a nice deal in Tampa.
Close, but no, it's not Kenny. It's not Kenny.
Oh,
you're out in the reeds, man.
I should have known that.
Okay, you got it. The answer is Reed Blankenship, Dave. He knew it. He's sandbagging us. Who said it on the Exciting Mike's podcast with his buddy Cooper DeJean. Blankenship is now a Houston Texan. How much will the Eagles miss his presence in the backfield, the defensive backfield?
Yeah, that quote makes sense. You think about him being an undrafted rookie with the Eagles. He was 12th of their 13 UDFAs that year in terms of guaranteed salary and signing bonus. So, yeah, he really did come from the bottom. He's worked his way up. They're going to miss him on the field. They're going to miss his leadership. He was a captain. But I think their actions also told you that they were ready to move on, because that deal, while it was a very nice deal for a guy who was undrafted, a little over $8 million a year for a starting safety isn't that big of a contract. If the Eagles wanted to do that, they probably could have it. It tells me that they were prioritizing other contracts coming down the line.
Yeah, and also tells you maybe we all thought he was great. Not we all, but certainly a lot of the fans did. Mm-hmm. I certainly did. And maybe the Eagles don't think he's as great as what many had perceived. Next up, quote, no matter if it's 1 year or 4 years, you're still going to have to put your shoulder pads on. You're going to have to play for your team. I just see it as a year to grow, to come and join this team, to go win a championship. Dave, quote it.
I know this one.
Okay.
Because I asked Reek Woolen this question. They got this answer about him being here on a 1-year deal. I thought it was a good answer.
Yeah, you're like Barbara Walters, man. What kind of tree would you be?
It's almost unfair that I get that one. I was there. He was talking to me.
It's not fair. We won't tell anybody that you requested that one. It's okay. When you look at this guy and you look at his height at 6'4", and you look at his speed, and that he's coming off a championship, so he knows what it takes to get a ring, that's a great sign, is it not?
Yeah, look, and I think they're going to get a motivated Reek Woolen this year. And can he cash in on a long-term deal? I think he can. He's certainly talented enough to do so, and I think he's going to be in a good position. We know he's going to see the football because teams are not going to be in a hurry to throw the ball at Quinyon Mitchell or Cooper DeJean. So the only other option they have is to throw the ball at that guy. He has good ball skills. I think he has a chance to intercept some passes and then make out like a bandit next year when free agency comes.
All right, some obvious context clues on this final quote. Going into year 5 of my career, I need an offense and an offensive coordinator and a head coach who align with what I believe in and what I can bring to a team. And I felt like this was the right place for me. Dave, who said it?
That's going to be Jahan Dotson in Atlanta.
Correct.
Year 5 is the big clue there. There aren't many offensive guys going into year 5. Yeah, look, he had 2 years in Washington, 2 years in Philly, and the 2 years in Philly, the production just wasn't there because he was behind A.J. Brown, behind Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. And I don't know if he ever truly earned the trust of the quarterback here, of Jalen Hurts. But look, he made the plays when they came to him. They just didn't come to him very often.
Yeah, it's kind of a surprise when you see a former number one pick kind of fall down the ranks both in D.C. and here. You're wondering what's wrong. Maybe he'll connect now. Do you think the Eagles upgraded the number 3 receiver spot today from Dotson to Hollywood Brown?
I do. I think Hollywood Brown is a better player, and I think he's a more useful player because of that pure speed. And like I mentioned, he's the type of player who can affect the game without needing the targets. That is a key, because that guy, if he's the number 3, just isn't going to get the target share that a lot of 3s in the league are going to get. So you have to be able to affect the game in different ways. In this case with Hollywood Brown, it's either stretching the field or pulling safeties in a direction across the field on crossers, things like that.